In 1986, a young man walked into a courthouse wearing a wrinkled pink shirt and carrying nothing but a photo of 3 baby girls. People whispered that he'd lost his mind. A single man, broke, alone, wanting to adopt 3 children who weren't even his blood. But 40 years later, the world would see what that crazy choice created: 3 women who changed lives and a father who never let go. Let's begin. It was a cold, cloudy morning in the county foster office. The smell of disinfectant and old paper hung heavy in the air. David Cole sat in a hard plastic chair, his hands resting stiffly on his knees. His pink shirt, faded and damp from nerves, clung to his back. Across the room, 3 baby girls sat quietly on a worn-out couch. They couldn't have been more than 2 years old. 3 little sisters, all in second-hand pink lace dresses, clutching each other like the world might end if they let go. Their names were Maya, June, and Lena. And even though they were too young to understand much, they already knew one thing: they were all they had. The social worker, Mrs. Green, sighed and flipped through a stack of papers. "Mr. Cole," she began gently, "I know your heart's in the right place, but you're 25, single. You work nights at a hospital laundry. You can't manage 3 toddlers." David's jaw tightened. "They're not 3, he said quietly. "They're 1. You split them, you break them." Mrs. Green frowned. "We have a couple interested in taking Maya alone. The younger 2 are harder to place." "But," David cut her off. "No. You separate them and you'll lose all 3. He looked toward the girls. "They cry together. They sleep together. They calm each other down. You can't put love on different shelves." From the corner, Mrs. Wheeler, his landlord, crossed her arms. "Mr. Cole, you're already behind on rent. If you bring 3 crying babies into that building, I'll get complaints every night." David turned to her, exhausted but calm. "Then raise the rent. Take another deposit. But don't tell me they don't deserve walls of their own." Mrs. Wheeler scoffed. "Walls don't raise children." He nodded. "You're right. Love does." A week later, David found himself standing in front of a family court judge. The room smelled like old wood and coffee. The echo of every cough and whisper hit the walls. The judge looked down at his file. "Mr. Cole," he said slowly, "on paper, this borders on reckless. You're young, poor, and single. What makes you think you can handle this?" David swallowed. His voice was steady but raw. "Because I already am," he said. "When they cry, I show up. When they're scared, I hold them. You can find them another house, but you won't find them another together." A relative in the courtroom, an aunt who'd only come for one of the girls, stood up. "He's not even family," she snapped. David turned to her. His voice didn't rise, but the whole room fell silent. "Family," he said, "isn't who shares your blood. It's who stays." Mrs. Green shifted nervously. The judge looked at her. "Is it true," he asked, "that they can't be separated?" Mrs. Green hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. They only sleep when they're together. They cry for hours when they're apart." The judge sighed. Then he tapped his gavel once. "Temporary custody to Mr. David Cole. Review in 6 months." David's knees almost gave out. He stepped into the hallway clutching the papers. The 3 girls were waiting, reaching out for him. He knelt, opened his arms, and whispered, "6 months is enough. I'll prove forever." The proving nearly broke him. He worked the night shift at the hospital, hauling heavy laundry bags, hands raw from bleach and heat. Then he came home at dawn to change diapers, wash bottles, and rock 3 cribs one by one. His tiny apartment looked like a battlefield of baby clothes and bills. Neighbors banged on the walls. Mrs. Wheeler left notes under his door. Too loud, too late, too much. But he refused to quit. He marked feeding times on masking tape. He learned to warm milk with one hand while holding 2 crying babies in the other. He hummed old songs his mother once sang, even when his voice cracked from exhaustion. One winter night, the power went out. The apartment went dark, and the girls whimpered from the cold. David wrapped them in layers of blankets and ran downstairs to fill thermoses with hot water from the building's boiler. He placed them beside the cribs, creating a small pocket of warmth. Then he sat on the floor, pink shirt draped over a chair, and whispered, "Daddy's here, always." When child services showed up at 3 a.m. after a neighbor's complaint, they found him asleep against the wall, 3 little girls curled up against his chest. One agent shined a flashlight and said softly, "They're fine." The report closed. But David never forgot how fragile safety felt. 10 years passed. The girls grew taller. Their laughter filled the apartment. But money didn't stretch the way love did. Bills piled up. The laundry truck he'd bought on credit broke down again. Collectors started calling. One evening, he sat at the kitchen table, folding 3 faded pink lace dresses, the same ones they'd worn the day he met them. He placed them in an old shoebox and whispered, "I promise to keep you together, but I don't know how much longer I can hold this line." A few days later, an eviction notice slid under the door. He folded it and hid it in the same box. When his landlord came knocking, Mrs. Wheeler crossed her arms. "You're drowning, Cole. Maybe it's time you let the state place them somewhere comfortable." David looked her in the eye. "Comfort doesn't raise kids. Commitment does." She smirked. "Then prove it." And he did. He worked double shifts. He repaired his broken truck himself, scraping his knuckles raw. He brought the girls to the laundry shop, teaching them how to fold sheets, count coins, and stack clean towels. Together, they turned survival into rhythm. 6 months turned into 10 years, and the review turned into a celebration. When the court finally called them back, the judge blinked in surprise. 3 little girls stood before him, smiling, dressed in matching church outfits their father had ironed overnight. "Mr. Cole," the judge said with a soft smile, "against all odds, you've done what no one believed possible. You've kept them safe. You've kept them together." David's throat tightened. He could barely nod. The gavel fell one last time. Adoption approved. He slipped the decree into the same shoebox with the pink dresses. Time moved fast. Maya grew quiet and strong. She followed her father's footsteps into the hospital. She became a nurse, the kind who stayed late when others went home. She once told a patient, "My father taught me that love is the longest shift you'll ever work." June became fierce, sharp-minded. She studied law. Years later, she stood in a courtroom and argued for sibling bond protection laws. Inspired by her own story, she won. And Lena, the youngest, was wild, creative, and full of ideas. She started designing baby furniture, affordable cribs, and feeding tools. Her first business? The Pink Thread Company. Through all of it, David never remarried. He stayed in that same apartment, still fixing, still humming, still grateful. When asked why he never moved, he'd smile and say, "Because this is where forever started." The year was 2026. David was 65 now. His hands were rough, his hair silver, but his eyes still carried that same quiet fire. That morning, he heard a knock on the door. When he opened it, he froze. Maya, June, and Lena stood there, grown women all in soft shades of pink. They were smiling through tears, holding flowers and a small, worn shoebox. "Dad," Maya said softly, "we have something for you." They led him outside. Parked in front of the building was a van painted with gold letters. The Pink Thread Foundation, keeping siblings together. Lena handed him the shoebox. Inside were the faded pink dresses and the adoption papers, yellowed by time. David's eyes filled. "You kept these?" June smiled. "We kept you, Dad. Now it's our turn." They handed him another envelope, this one with keys inside. "It's a home," Maya whispered. "A foster home for kids like us. Brothers and sisters who shouldn't be torn apart." David looked up at the sign above the building. The Pink Thread Home. Children ran around the yard, laughing, holding hands the way his girls once did. Reporters stood nearby, cameras flashing. Even Mrs. Green, the old social worker, was there, her hair now white. She clapped through tears. And standing at the back of the crowd was Mrs. Wheeler, the landlord who once called him reckless. She wiped her eyes quietly. David turned to his daughters, voice trembling. "You did all this?" Lena laughed through tears. "You started it." They pulled out a freshly ironed pink shirt, identical to the one he'd worn that first day in court. They slipped it over his shoulders and took his hands. "Still together?" he whispered. They nodded. "Always." The cameras flashed, but David wasn't looking at them. He was looking at his daughters, the proof that love doesn't need to make sense to last. If this story touched you, tell us in the comments. Would you have taken the same risk as David Cole? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more real stories of love, courage, and impossible promises kept.